I'm talking to William Vann, the organist and director of music at the chapel choir of the Royal Hospital, Chelsea. This is his third compact disc he's made with SOMM, and we made it last summer over 2 very warm days in July. Will, I believe this is the first recording in remembrance which attracted the members of the Elgar Society to your work, because certainly from my point of view, I found that a very inspiring disc. Do you remember the background to making that?
Yes, well, obviously, being at the Royal Hospital, we're very much aware of the topic of remembrance, and so I always wanted to make a disc commemorating that aspect of things, and of course 2018, the 100th anniversary of the end of the Great War, made sense for that anniversary, and we included on that disc Elgar's They Are at Rest, which we've actually recorded again for this disc, but I thought it seemed such a shame to miss it off. We could have just used the version from the previous recording, of course, but I think that would have been cheating and would not have matched, of course, acoustically.
But it wasn't. You made that recording in the chapel at Chelsea, didn't you?
No, we did it at the Temple Church, actually.
Oh, the Temple Church, yes.
In fact, sadly, the only trouble with the Royal Hospital of Chelsea, it's a beautiful building, but there are 2 issues there. One, our organ is a little bit small for the sort of music we want to record, and secondly, you get an aeroplane coming over every minute on its way to Heathrow Airport.
Yes. But interestingly, down the road in Stone Square, on the whole, and that big church, Holy Trinity, where we made this Elgar disc, there was very little interruption. Actually,
less than I thought, because it's a busy road outside. But yeah, we had the odd supercar roaring past, didn't we? And, and the occasional bus screeching to a halt. But apart from that, it was not bad.
And of course, that's got a magnificent organ.
Magnificent organ, yes, and a great acoustic really for this music. Sort of as a bit of a cathedral-like acoustic, which I think Elgar would have appreciated.
Without too much reverberation.
No, there's quite a lot, but with some intelligent engineering, which of course we had the benefit of Adak's wonderful work on this. But it wasn't an issue.
Yes, you're talking about Adak Khan, the engineer for this recording.
Absolutely, yes. Who I've worked with on several occasions now, and he's brilliant. Always captures a wonderful sound.
Yes, he does, doesn't he? And he's very tolerant.
Very tolerant, as recording engineers have to be, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the idea behind this disc is to try and tell Elgar's story through the music he wrote for chorus and largely organ. Obviously, if you're going to tell the story of his life in CDs, you'd need about 15 of them. But we've tried to cut this down from the very earliest choral work he composed, or arranged in this case, through to the last choral work he wrote in 1932. Tell us about that early work.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's well, there are sort of 2 early works, aren't there? Really, at the beginning of the disc, the Gloria and the Credo, which are both really fascinating because they're both sorts of arrangement. I mean, the Gloria it is just a pure, realization, really, of a Mozart violin sonata movement, but for choir. And clearly, Elgar was drawn to the music. He realised that he could make the text fit. And so he's engineered it into this lovely, buoyant Gloria, really. So that's a fascinating starting point, and as we've discussed, was really, you can, although it's Mozart, you can just hear Elgar sort of finding a kind of voice in terms of a bit of choral writing. Which he obviously the rest of the disc then develops dramatically.
But I mean, here's this extraordinary sort of story of this young fellow with no hope of going to a conservatory, teaching himself how to compose. And I know it's not unique, but it's quite surprising to find someone, say, in the second half of the 19th century, doing that and going on to become such an accepted musical figure.
Yeah, and such an accomplished, writer of then, as we know later, huge scale works, which are just incredible, and some of the finest regarded, works written in the English language for choir and orchestra. But obviously that's all to come at the start of this composing life. And you're right. I mean, it is amazing, really. But I do think there's something about not having perhaps the restrictions that a conservatoire teaching might place upon you, you know, a bit of sort of instruction, and this is how you do it, and this is how you write. That's actually sometimes in the right sort of mind are actually, or can be, liberating. So there's a sort of 50-50 there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that not everything he wrote was great, but on the other hand, I think we've got a reasonably good selection of very fine music on this disc.
Yeah.
Some of them absolute masterpieces. You mentioned They Are at Rest, which I've always felt to be in that classification. Are there any other pieces you'd pick out as being very special?
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautifully poised work, They Are at Rest, isn't it? Something like, in terms of scale and, magnificence, Give Unto the Lord is obviously, again, one of the finest English church anthems ever written, I think. I think it's the way he takes the words of that psalm and just unleashes them in moments of, high drama. It's incredible, and I've always loved that piece, and I remember hearing it as a boy, in fact, and singing it as a chorister, years and years and years ago, and falling in love with it. So I was really excited to get the chance to actually record that and make what I hope is a recording worthy of entering the pantheon of some other fantastic recordings of that work.
Yes, well, I mean, look, we've already talked about our marvellous engineer, and we've talked about the acoustic of the church and the organ, and they all seem to me, who has had the privilege of attending these sessions, to come together beautifully, and the feeling that the choir really enjoyed what they were doing.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's lots of little moments of inspiration. Definitely being in that wonderful building and feeling that your voices, I think for the choir that their voices were really, sounding to their best. Then singing alongside that incredible organ, which is actually, it's a terrific instrument. In many ways, it's sort of too big for almost any building. I mean, it's a huge instrument, and actually we had to, from Josh Ryan, my organ scholar, played brilliantly, but his initial registrations, actually, when I heard them, I said, actually, this is going to be too much for any choir to really sing against. So it was actually, we had to sort of like tone that down a little bit, but I don't think we've lost anything because of that. I think actually we've gained sort of at moments a beautiful intimacy, but at other moments we've allowed the organ to really unleash and hear the mighty roaring that it can do.
I think that's right. We've also got some a cappella music on the disc, haven't we? Which gives a lovely contrast.
Absolutely, and some of that a cappella music is perhaps, there are a few bits that are less well known. Perhaps there's that beautiful Angelus, and actually when I was listening back to the edit, the Angelus, which is a freshly recorded work, is again a beautifully poised piece of writing. Yes. It's stunning in the way Elgar threads these different sort of almost leitmotifs together over the course of that 2-verse. Angelus is absolutely wonderful, and that you're right. That's also the music with organ works really well, but of course then you have that beautiful acoustic to sing into with the a cappella repertoire, which was very exciting. And then something like There Is Sweet Music, of course, which again is a wonderful and very, very clever piece of writing. To have the two halves of the choir in different keys, yet sort of blending as one, is a genius stroke, and that's the sort of thing which I think, when we talk about Elgar not having that conservatoire education, you think actually it allows the imagination maybe to take flight a little bit more than it might have been if he'd been told how to compose. Maybe he would have never come up with that sort of idea. Yes,
I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, it's ludicrous to speculate what it'd be like, but one feels that even though he may have resented the fact that he'd never sort of entered the normal stratas of British music society, he never quite appreciated. It gave him a freedom. Exactly. It wouldn't have existed otherwise.
Yeah, and then maybe now we're really starting to look back and appreciate. Perhaps.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you for talking to SOMM, and congratulations for what you achieved and for the other recordings you're making, particularly in this year of Vaughan Williams' 150th anniversary. So very best wishes to you, and thank you again.
Thank you very much.